This video is sponsored by Autodesk. So I've been working on a heads-up display type HUD thing. You may have seen it on the YouTube shorts and stuff on the channel. And I want to go through it, and I want to start off really talking about the workflow and kind of how simple it is to create this kind of thing. So I'm going to start off small. I'm probably not going to build anything from scratch. I may do, but I'm going to show you around the scene that I've created for you guys, and obviously the scene is going to be free. And you can go and add to it and create your own kind of like crazy inventions from there. So the premise of it is that we work off of profile curves and instancing, right? So I've got two curves here, which are just basic NURBS curves. Now in the scene, all of the profile curves are kept neatly in this profile instant curves group. And so we'll create a profile curve, and then we'll create a instance curve to instance along the points on that curve. Okay, so that looks something like this. Let's keep all this out of the way for a minute. Quite simply, we've got our profile curve, and let me just lock this. So our profile curve is number 8, and if I just open up those profile curves, I've put them in a little group down here. So that's our points, and then this is what we actually want to instance along those points, which gives us all of these lines going across. Everything is in like neat little layers, so I can just turn off those profile curves for now in the layer editor, and we're just left with these curves. So the majority, just excuse my camera in a minute, I've been doing some renders. The majority of the effects do rely on a couple of the MJCG tools, and again, if you haven't got those, you should have those. But no, that's a content browser. I believe, I'm not sure if they're actually just part of the Bifrost browser now. They should be if they're not. And yeah, so let me just show you around a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do with this particular effect is to create the instance. So we've got profile instance curve, and then I'm going to bake those curves down, yeah, into a bake instance geometry. Literally just type in bake and you'll get bake instance geometry come up. And at the moment I've just got an output going there. So let's undo that output, and then I'm going to drop down a curl strands node. So if you just start typing in curl, you'll see it come up here, curl strands. We drop that in there, and I'm just going to output that for a second. Now curl strands is cool because, well, we can curl strands, but what you may or may not know if you've ever used this before is that it's got a nice little area where you can define where you want curls to happen, and quite simply that is in the size section here. And so if I open up this size section, we can see that I've created, you know, a peak here, and if I move that peak, we get some movement, and we've got zeros here, and we can see that that is based on this, based on the length of these curves. So that's really cool. It means we can, you know, almost mask our effect in a way. So to make it a little bit more interesting, in curl strands there's this little weights section, which means we can plug something into that. So I went ahead and just created a fractal turbulence field, not a fractal, not fractal noise, fractal turbulence field, and then I want that to be animating. So in time, because it's got a field associated it. We create a scalar field, and then we're multiplying time, seconds, by a number, which gives us the speed. And then out of the field, I'm going vector free to scalar, because that is what the port accepts. Okay, so we've got weights, and I can just bring Y into weights. And now we can see we've got some craziness going on. Now, even on its own, this is pretty cool for, I don't know if you want to do any kind of like music stuff or whatever. but this works nicely, and because we've got that time going, it's like looping, doing a fractal loop. And we can, of course, change how far we want that to spread out over our animation. So I could just drag this along here, and we can see that in real time we're actually moving that mask in a way of where we want it to go. We don't really want negative numbers, but you can do it. You can do negative numbers, and you can do obviously different peaks. So, you know, that's pretty amazing as well. So let's just stop that for a second, and I'll just click on here and type in 0. Okay, so that might be too much for us, but there's many ways to control the heights, the peaks and the troughs of this frequency. We can do it in the actual frequency itself. We can change that and make it like less and a little bit more cool to look at, you know, less mad, and we can change the phase as well. So we get all kinds of different looks, which is exactly what we want as artists, is lots of things to be able to control things, to put it simply. So we've got width, which means that we can just sort of spread this effect out sideways as well, if you want that kind of thing. But we don't want to stop there. So the next thing, if we look at this as an asset, okay, so we've created an asset here. We've got our instance and we've got our curling, and we love that. So, you know, I'm just going to wrap this up like this, and we're just going to create a backdrop. And I'm just going to say asset. I don't know why I'm typing asset. I'd never normally type asset, but there we go. There's an asset. Okay, but for your mind, it just kind of like simplifies things. So we've got an asset. From there, I'm looking at this thinking, all right, this is cool, but I kind of want to wrap it around something else. I want to wrap it around a NURB circle maybe, okay? So from there, let's just unplug the output. Yeah, I'll just leave those there for a minute. From there, we can go down and we can do, firstly we can do our set strands shape, and set Arnold strand settings, so that we know that we're going to be able to render it. Okay, so we need both of these for rendering. If you don't know, you need set strand shape, that enables us to change it from like a wire to a ribbon to a tube, and enables us to create a default size. And then we need the Arnold strand settings, because if you don't, you can actually render it without the Arnold strand settings. I'll say that now. You can plug this straight into a sign. But if you don't have the set Arnold strand settings, your profile curves in here, let's say you're using circles or something like that, won't render correctly. They won't close the curves, they won't do what they look like in the viewport. So you need this for that. So I would just say use that all the time. So there's our asset, there's our rendering, yeah. And I'll just move this out of the way because I'm not going to look at all that in a moment. And then so at the back of there, I'm like, okay, so let's create a circle. Let's create a NURB circle. And all of those NURB circles I've got in wrap curves, yeah, so wrap curves. And if we click on this circle, we can see that it's number 12. So if we want to move that around, we can. Important to note is that when you plug in any kind of curve or NURBS curve, it's going to come in with like a degradation of quality. So you're going to get something that doesn't quite look how you want it to look. It's going to be like a low res NURBS. So I usually just switch to length in here. And then by dragging this number down, you increase the subdivisions. Or you can use multiplications and take it up. Up to you. So I plugged that into Strands Wrap Deformer again. Now this for me is a game changer. I never really thought about Strands Wrap Deformer before, until I thought about wrapping strands around strands. And then really sitting in front of me the whole time has been this super powerful little node, which we can plug geometries into. And I say geometries, we can plug anything into here. So geometries, volumes, particle systems, and in our case, instances, yeah? plug into here, and then we can wrap it around the circle. So if I just drop down an output here and plug that in, we can now see that we've got our effect wrapping around a circle, which is bloody amazing. Because, you know, firstly it means you can spend time on this area, right? You might think, do you know what, I don't want to see strands, I just want to see points, or I want to add points to this. I want to add some sort of plexus to this as well. And then at the end of it, we can just wrap it all around a circle. Now here's what I mean by the circle resolution. So if we just select that and I start to bring that up, we can see that the shape starts to sort of degrade. However, this could be a plus, because now we're starting to get pentagons and hexagons, and we may want this all from a circle, right? Obviously our shape isn't kind of meeting there, but inside the strands wrap deformer we've got a length scale, and if we scroll that up and down we can start to move our effect in different ways. So I'm going to get this right back up again. I'm going to get it down to a small number, and then I'm going to use this length scale, just holding down the control key just to kind of get it to there. I know why this is overlapping. It's because my original profile curve isn't exactly straight, but I can sort that out, no problem. There is this button which is on by default, which is called Align from Center. So if I just put down a strands wrap deformer now, it's probably going to be easier if I just start typing wrap, because it's less of a used term. Strands wrap deformer, by default Align from Center is on. However, I've found that when you start to use animated fractals, if that is on, the whole thing wobbles, even though you're only you know, using this kind of masked area. So if I do this at the moment, nothing's moving. If I switch on Align from Center, which is on by default, and then try and move it, you can see that the entire circle is moving, which may or may not be what you want, but I don't want that, so I have that switched off. Yeah, and that's probably solved the problem before you even got to one. Keep length, we can put that on, but it's going to do it's going to work based on the length here, but it's yeah, again, I'm not 100%. I think it's just going to enable us to use the offset a bit more, and yeah, something, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what keep length's about. It doesn't seem to make that much difference. I'm sure it's got its use. Again, off for me. So yeah, I'm gonna just like kind of get that to there. So this is cool. We can create all sorts of insane effects from here. So let's open up the graph a bit more. So we've got our rendering section, rendering, I spelled that wrong. Then we've got our wrap deformer. Now these other bits and bobs up here I've put in because I thought, well, actually now I can instance on top of an instance, and we can plug all that in. But it's probably, time is probably best spent if I go and show you the rest of some of the graphs. There's some other stuff down here where I have generated sample locations on the strands, and then added some little details down here that just enable us a bit more sort of motion graphics-y sort of movement. And again, if I get our wrap deformer over here and plug that into geometries, we can then see some of that stuff, which is you know, now sitting over the top of our effect. And so we get these points that move up and down with our curves, but I've also got like this extra addition. So I've basically got the point position out of location scope, and now I'm adding a number in the value of y, so that I could have a little bit of control over the placement. So if I just move this out of the way, I'll just show you that I can move these up and down if I want. So, you know, I can have them up there if I want to. Don't know why I would want to, but it's there if I want to do it, which is again really cool. Now, it's when you're creating like heads-up displays and kind of technical animations and that, it's important to, well, I mean, I find it's important to work kind of from like the inside out and make sure there's not too much going on in any one area. Just kind of look at it and work with it as if it's a piece of art in a way. But Bifrost is amazing for this because I can start to add points on top of points with instances on top of points and instances of instances and wrapped around different things. So look, here's another instance of that, and I can look. I'll just stick that into geometries as well, and I don't actually know what I've got in this one. We've got, right, I can take out the, so I've got points from there, so I could put these points into the instance here, and I've got, now we can see that we've got like all these little lines turned up, which kind of look cool. I like them, I really like them. It sort of gives us a graph view, right? So basically that's just a point scope. So now I've taken this point scope from earlier where I was showing the sample locations. I'm like, actually no, let's take the point scope out, put that into an instance, use a different profile curve which is facing up in Y, and that profile curve is curve 11. So if I go to the outliner, where's my outliner gone? Outliner, go to profile curve 11, hit the scale, and I could scale these up and down, you see. And so again, it's more control, right? And if I don't want as many, I will go to the actual profile curve there, and once again we can use the resolution of that to give us more or less points. So you see, it's more of a workflow thing for me. You know, I've been racking my day for a few brains. I was going to say, I've been racking my brains for a few days, as you can tell, to work out how I could just create one node for you guys to use. But I don't believe that's the way, because the nodes I was coming up with were just too much, and there's too many different types of inputs that you want to put in yourself. I could do a few and bring it down a bit, but I think it's important to understand the workflow, and that is profile curves and wrap curves. Profile curves where you get your points and your visual things, and your wrap curves, which are your curves that you're basically just wrapping around and instancing around. I'm swinging my hand all over the place here, but you can't see it. So yeah, that's one thing. So let's do a bit of a grand reveal. If I just press Control 1 here, we can see that I've been working quite hard, but not too hard, because I figured it all out for you, kind of thing, if that makes sense. So that you can take this scene, look at how it's built, and I've built it in a kind of methodical way. Mostly, I'll tidy it up a bit before we go. But I started in the centre and worked my way out, and I didn't want anything on the outside to be like overpowering any other area. And as such, I think a bit of balance when you're building this kind of thing. You can go on Pinterest and look up all kinds of examples, and there's loads of like inspirational stuff out there. I wouldn't like say just go and copy something, make it your own. Mine looks a bit more playful and toyish. But yeah, so this is how it all works, right? I will tidy this up, do not worry. So let's start with the inner details graph. I am using the fractal voxel field nodes that will come with the scene, but that's just helping us make, in fact, what we can do is, because I separated them all out into different graphs, we can just click on inner details and press Control 1, and we can start to deal with that on its own. Why is that still there? I do not know. I must have some display type thing going on. Don't know, let's not worry. So yeah, I've got this. That is what this is doing in the fractal voxel field. It's creating these lovely geographical type lines that we've got going on here. And there's many ways you can. You don't need to use this. You could go to like Windows Bifrost browser. You could go into fields, and you could use like the flat hurricane noise and adapt that, which is part of Bifrost. And this you can make your own. Like literally, it's nothing. If you just go in there and open it up, all I've got is this. You know, make your own, or you know, pause it and make your own if you want. There's nothing crazy in here at all. It's just a vector field with some elements and a voxel field put together, and that's it. But hopefully it will come across on the scene. The only thing you do have to do when using this is to use a volume. So that is created by, I've just got sphere, that's all I've got, and again I've got spherical meshes in a nice little folder for you where we can go and play around with that. See, you can see spherical meshes there, and you know, you can make this big, small, do what you want with it. So that sphere comes in, and I just go mesh to volume, making sure that level set is switched on. I'm pretty sure I showed you this in the last lesson. And then the actual sphere itself plugged into a voxel field. That's that. No need for any wrapping, because obviously it wraps itself around the object anyway. Going on down here, I've created some points as well. So I've gone volume to mesh, right? I've got the point position. I've constructed points. First in array, I've culled some of those points because I didn't want to see them all, right? And then I've done a point scope because I want to see the points as well that are left remaining, and then a plexus, which gives us where is it? In fact, if I just turn the plexus radius up a bit, you'll see it start to move. There we go. You see, it's just got the same colour to it. That's all. But those plexus just kind of go around those points, and I think they look really cool. They look really nice indeed. And then that just goes off, and you know, we just go into setting the strand shape, setting the strand settings again as before, right? That's the workflow. Again, here and here, I'm using internal materials at the moment for all of this, but actually we could see those strands better if I just change the colour here to let's just go whatever, you know, let's just go dark or whatever, so you can see that they're, you know, separate. Let's go a little blue. Yeah, let's not play around with it too long, so I'm just going to get stuck doing that. So that's cool. That's the plexus going into there. So I will tidy all of this up a little bit, but it's not too bad. I think we need to get used to like actually, rather than just thinking, oh yeah, well I just want one node to do it all. That's kind of not really you know, where we're at. But these are all like surface level nodes. They're not hard, and they're not hard to use. And when you actually think about them methodically, they make sense. Yeah, it makes sense that I'm culling some points because I don't want plexus to use all of the points. But I want to show some of those points between plexus, so I'm using a point scope from the remaining points. All these things make sense to me, anyway, as an artist. So going down here. You can see we've got these hexagons that sit around the outside of this sphere, and they point outwards, and I really like these. So basically, again, those hexagons exist inside icons. I created a whole scene of icons in another scene, and they're all in here for you to use. We've got arrows and brackets and crosses and numbers and whatever, all turned into outlines, all you know, NURBS curves, as it were. And you can add your own, delete mine, start again, whatever you like. But it's a good start. And so with that, what did we do? So with that, again, it's about profile curves and then wrapped curves afterwards. Yeah. So the first thing I did was create a NURBS curve, which is basically like the other profile curve, just a line, just a straight line Curve shape 1, we can see that in here. Again, we go to profile curves, curve shape 1, and I'll just switch on those profile curves. It's there, it's in there. It's just because it's sort of hidden at the moment because I've got everything hidden, but we can see it now. So I create my profile curve and then I instance the hexagon shapes along that curve. Yeah, so it's just going to look like a bunch of hexagons along a curve. There's the hexagon shape. I've done a circle as well because you can plug in as many instances as you want. From there I put in a randomized point scale because it's fun to be able to move those around, create different sizes. Hang on, I've lost me thing. Right, there we go. And then yeah, so let's just go to that profile, that randomized size. So if we look at those hexagons there on the corner, I can make those bigger or smaller. So I've just got like major control over those, which is cool. I can move them around. I can add more of those instances by going back to the original profile curve. Remember that profile curve contains all of those hexagons kind of running along it. The only reason it's wrapped around a sphere is because we're using a wrap deformer. So yeah, that's all good. And then from there I'm baking that. And then I believe I've instanced them again now around the sphere, yeah, and I've used the scatter as well so that I can add more if I want to, or less quite easily without having to touch the resolution of the sphere itself. Bake those and then rendering it. So the only thing that's different here is the scattering, and we're not using a wrap deformer because we don't need it. So that is basically the inner sphere, and obviously we can animate any of this. You know, we want those curves to animate. You know, we want them to start with kind of no, you know, start from nothing. We could just pull back the seconds there, and we could draw them on. We could animate, you know, the fractal nature of it, the frequency, whatever. It's all there to be done. We can change the look very, very quickly, make it more simplistic looking. You know, super cool. So we come out of there, and then basically it's more of the same. So I've got outer stage 1, which is kind of like this area. Let's have a look. You know, it looks a bit mental, but it really isn't. You know, break it down into just like, you know, lines of effects. Instance, profile curve, instance along it, do something, wrap it. Yeah? Always wrapping it is going to get us around the circle. And then, you know, it makes it nice to work on because back here is where we can do all our fun stuff along the original curve. And you know that you're going to be able to wrap it afterwards. So what one are we looking at here? We've got some randomized point scale and stuff. So if I just move that around, okay. So I've got like a row of circles going on down here for that first one, and I've got different sizes going on just for a bit more interest. Again, wrapped around a circle, so that is circle 4. So I can just go into wrap curves, circle 4, and if I want to, I can scale this up or down. Hang on, I believe I'm looking at the wrong one. Hang on. Circle 4. I think I'm using that for 2. Yeah, I'm using that for 2 effects actually. Bit naughty of me, but you know, always a good idea, which is why I've got loads duplicated in here to use like one curve for one effect rather than using it across lots of effects. But you know, my bad. So we've got some animation going on with some of this. As you can see, that little inner area is animating, and these are just using like rectangles and yeah, they're using rectangles, and I've used a fractal noise with some time pushed into the randomized point scale weights, and again with the weights there, and that's just given us that movement, that fractal kind of movement. You can plug in other things to it, other ways of animating over time, or indeed you don't even have to use anything in Bifrost. You could drag out any of this stuff into an input node and animate it in Maya. So I'm going to move on from that kind of simple stuff to mesh elements, because this is something I found really cool. Let's see if let me see if which one is this? Mesh elements. Let's just select it. Mesh elements. I'm just going to go Control 1, and we're just going to look at mesh elements on their own. So mesh elements. If I just unhide, if I just switch on mesh elements here, let's just go back Control 1. I'll grab mesh elements as well, and we'll just go and have a look. Mesh elements, these are literally just a few pieces of geo I created in Maya, and just added some shape to it. Really basic. Okay. So what we do is we bring in that basic shape, some of those basic shapes, instance them, bake the instance. Then we do this bit, which is detach faces and extrude, right? So extrude and detach faces means that we can take that original shape and pull it apart in different ways. So you saw what the shape looked like originally. Let's just get it open again. So there are the original shapes, and we can make all of these different types of shapes out of one shape because of extrude. So extrude just allows us to work at kind of the component level. As you can see here, I can pull different bits apart. We can scale different parts of it. We can scale the object as a whole, and also by using the wrap curve that we used, we can move it around in the scene. Now the wrap curves, it's actually important to note that we can use actual geometry, not just strands, and wrap those around using the wrap deformer, which is pretty amazing. So you start to get to see like really cool shapes happening, and you can really play around with this extrude. There's a whole load of different effects you can get from it, and you can use a combination of effects to create other very odd looking areas. So like here I've come out of the extrude, and I've used a smooth strands with iterations on, right? So and by using that smooth strands, I've done a mesh to strands first, then I use smooth strands, and by using the iterations I'll get different shapes every time because it's trying to smooth it in different ways, and that works as a benefit for me. And we can just I'm then using Plexus after the fact, so that we can add some like extra detail to that. So it becomes something where you as you're working on it, you're creating different effects as you go, kind of thing, and it's like super powerful. So I'll switch off mesh elements there and just Control 1. Now this little element here, that's just a bit of glass I've put in for the render. This element here, let's just Control 1 and look at this. So this is outer stage, and again, like, it's nice if you can break it down into stages for yourself, for your own mental well-being. But here all I've used is a profile curve again, initially instanced along another profile curve. So I've used a curve to instance along the profile curve, right? And all I've done is got one of the curves that one of the instances, and I've grabbed some CVs and pulled them to the left. Yeah, I'm going to go new scene, and I'm just going to show you how quickly we can do it. Right, so it's create CV curve tool. I'm going to go over the top, and I'm going to create the curve that I want to instance along. Just do that, and then I'm going to create another curve down here. Bosh, 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 bosh. Yeah, why not? Let's have some shape to it. Okay, so we've got two curves, there and there. Create a new graph. Let me just dock this. Let's bring in, we'll call this profile. There's a curve instance. Create instances. Profile goes into points. Curve goes into instance geometries, and then instance geometry goes out. With our original curves, we'll just put them on a display layer, hide. So now we can see that we've got some ugly shape. That is because we don't have any resolution on our curve. Okay, so you can either use segment multiplication or length. I'm just going to go with length, and already it's given us a little bit more resolution, but I can just start to bring that down or take it up because I might want something like that. Hence the great workflow for this kind of thing. So I'll put it down, and then I can just go back into that original curve if I want and make all the changes I feel necessary, and it's going to always update. So from that point on, it's now about wrapping it around something. So we're just going to let's add a little bit more resolution. So now if I want more instances, I will just get that original profile curve, turn that to length, and we can see that we can just start to add, you know, a lot. If we want to, we can just go really, really, really dense. But you know, let's just go back there for now, and then I'll create a circle. So create a NURB circle. NURB circle. I'm going to make that a bit bigger, right? And I'm going to bring that NURB circle in. Hide the original one on a new layer. And now I'm going to type in wrap. Strands wrap deformer. Okay, so we want to wrap around this target, which is our NURB circle, and we want the instances to come out of there. If we press P on here, it will enable us to see it, but nothing's going to show up, and that is because we haven't baked those original instances. So let's just undo those for a minute. Plug this in here. Just going to delete that port, just to keep it tidy. So here I'm going to type in bake instance geometry. So we're going to take out the instance into there, and we're going to replace the, we're going to pull that out, and we're going to pull in strands into that, and then we've got something going on. Okay. In the strands wrap deformer itself, firstly we need to get the resolution working on the circle. So I'm just going to pull that down, and we can see here around these edges what's going on with the resolution. Yeah, so we start to pull that down, and I'm going to switch off a line from center. I'm going to change this to X, and we can see that we're starting to wrap around part of the curve, as you can see. Can scale that length all the way around. It will start going off into the ether, but it's also based on this resolution. So we can take that around to about there, and then we can play with the size. And we can still go back to our original curves, which was this one. Let's switch that on, and we can be like, no, do you know what? I want those to be sort of almost straight now. Actually, I want some kind of movement in Y of this as well. So we'll just kind of move that down, and you start to get some funky stuff going on. So we can go back here, and we can wrap that right the way around that circle. Because the reason it was wrapped before is because we'd pulled those CVs all the way left like that, and so they were touching first. So they will go off But yeah, you can like drag one of these CVs down, get it right to the edge there, and then we could be like, yeah, let's wrap this all around like this and make some really cool looking curves. And that is the workflow. You know, you will find yourself going back to the wrap deformer, sorting out this kind of thing, which is inevitable if you're going to be moving around, you know, large areas of verse. That's just how it is. But yeah, super cool. So we use a combination of size and stuff like that to get all sorts of different looks going on. And really sat in front of me all of the time with Maxime's tools. We've had all of the elements that we need to create this kind of really cool stuff. So I'm going to put the file up. You can have a look. I've talked a lot. I've shown you the basics of how to do it. I'll tidy this scene up for you. You can have the scene for free and just go off and do your own kind of thing. But it's really, really powerful. Really powerful. You know, we can wrap anything around this these wrap deformers. Very, very clever. Not just strands. You know, geometry, as I showed you before. We can even create. We can even do it with volumes. I've done it with volumes that like merged volumes with union and difference, and you know, things cut out of other things. It's super powerful. Alright guys, so that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this scene. Took me a little while to set up, took me a while to figure all of this out. Please like, subscribe, share all of the others. Take care. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Thanks a lot.